Hi, thank you for joining us today. I am Dawn Cerise, and I am with Wei of Blood Moon Astrology, and we're going to be delving deeper into Uranian astrology. I did have an introduction to this back in 2017, and I just wanted to take a little bit further because I believe these are valuable tools for astrologers. So, ooh. This is the link to the last time I did this, the original introduction that I did. If you'd like to start there, certainly go ahead. And this will always be here. Uranian astrology was conceived of by Alfred Witte about 100 years ago. The study of such was initiated back in World War I. And I've gone through all this information on the last video. I've included it here in case somebody is new to it, doesn't go back to the other video to check it out. And right here you can see all the details that will be covered in Uranian astrology. Using midpoints is one of the most important, as well as the 90-degree chart. The 90-degree movable dial is invaluable tool for reading a chart. It is a new way of doing things, but it gives you so much more information. I think you're going to be very intrigued. I'm going to cover some of these right here in this with Wei today. This is also how to add the Trans-Neptunians, which are hypothetical planets, into your astro.com charts. And again, like I said, this is on the last video. You can pause this video here if you need to. As with this screen, this is the way to add the Trans-Neptunians into the solar fire charts, along with screenshots, exactly step-by-step on how to do it. It's pretty straightforward stuff. And I just want to be clear here on the Uranian astrology. The original studies were done during World War I and subsequent studies World War II. I mean, if you think about it, that 30, 40 years of time was hugely, pivotally tragic for the whole world. I mean, World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, these are awful times. So as I say below here, soul-crushing times led to very tragic interpretations. This is the book. It's actually the 5th edition of the book, if you can see that. And like I said, the interpretations are very tragic, but it's for us to apply our times and our understandings to create the right interpretation for the right time. So this is, just subsequent to that or additional to that. Don't take the rules too verbally and think they are so valid for me. Their systematic stimulation should give rise to inspiration, furnish possibilities, applying capabilities for correct interpretation. You pass the limitation if by experience and thought to the right spot you have brought each configuration. No interpretation sorrow through astrology of tomorrow. And this was Ludwig Rudolph, who was part of the original investigators into this method. This here is definitions for each, as well as the symbols and how their movement is and, their general flavor. I would suggest pausing here, reading through this. You'll use this, maybe even do a screenshot. You'll use this often when you're using your interpretations through Uranian astrology. And if you were to Google Uranian astrology, you will find a number of different amazing astrologers with this information and more available on their websites and their articles. I've included a lot of links and a lot of credits at the end of the video, so that information will be there. This right here, let me just move this, hoping that everybody can see that. This right here is the octaves per the Uranian understanding, and they put things together differently than other astrology methods do. So this school of thought puts Mercury with Pluto, being physical outer action of Mercury combining with the growth and development from Pluto. And again, you see these code words or keywords on the previous screen as well, regarding Cupido and Vulcanus and Apollon and so on. But again, this will be very valuable information, and you'll be able to screenshot that too if you want to. This as well, going further into the understanding with these keywords, like I was saying, to help you dig in. Now, oops. Oh, dear Lord. So back to understanding what we're working with here. Now, again, World War I, World War II, the Great Depression. The Great Depression was worldwide. It wasn't just the U.S. And, to put together some ideas here, these are per the understanding of the book, but it's for us to interpret for our times. So you could look simply to Saturn Cupido and read divorce, which would be a valid reading. But maybe not always. Maybe not always divorce. Maybe it's strong foundational dedication and responsibility to the marriage partner, or to the marriage itself, or to group associations. So you've got to take that spark and apply it to what you're reading. A chart will tell you what's happening. You can't just go and say Saturn Cupido is always divorce. It's not. And again, I couldn't fit these over on the last screen, so I just brought them over here for everyone. This right here, I wanted to introduce trans-Pluto. This is also a trans-Neptunian hypothetical planet. And Lynn Coiner did some research on this, which is wonderful. I put the link right there. Dig in there, because if you look at it in your chart and you start to run your progressions and your transits, even your returns and where that resides in each year, you'll be able to see some big things. And it's all about transforming the self. Maybe when you're young, you're held down, you're blocked, you're restricted, you're, shamed, all these types of things, which really go into your development and can kind of stunt things if you let them. The trans-Pluto will oftentimes come at a place in your life where you'll graduate out of that. You'll turn, the worm turns and says, not anymore, that kind of thing. So you start to really recognize your own power. You start to express it, and it can lead to some, bust ups in a family or in a group setting. If your mom is always used to putting you down and suddenly you don't put up with it anymore, maybe there's going to be a little fireworks in there. But this part, dig into that trans-Pluto. It's huge. Read her stuff there. I did a study on it for myself, probably around the time I first got my solar fire, around 2007. And at that time, I had about 150 charts to work off of people that I knew or could look up their history. And you could really see this being effective and active at the times where things turned. So we'd like to encourage everybody to look into that. This screen here is describing the charts and dials and the orbs and tolerance. Orbs and tolerance are really tight. Now this right here, and I'll tell you why, this right here is a 90-degree sort chart. So dang, did it again. So right here would be the Aries point at 0 cardinal, and this would take you all the way to 30 cardinal, or 29 really, because 30 would start over to the fixed signs. So 0 to 29, to the end of 29.59 would be all the cardinal planets in your chart, and then this would be all the fixed planets in your chart. and this would be all the mutables. So can be an invaluable tool. When you just look at it at first glance, you can see right away if there's an imbalance or if a person is beautifully balanced with their expressions in the modalities. And that right there gives you a huge base point to start off from on understanding the person that you're talking to, understanding the person you're reading for, understanding if Saturn Cupido does end up in divorce or express as a possibility of divorce, or if it expresses as some significant dedication and a strong foundation in marriage. You'll be able to see these kinds of things. I think I've explained this well here. 2-degree orb, yeah, definitely. You want to use a 2-degree orb for the Trans-Neptunians on a 360 chart. But when you break that down, and here's the math down here so that everybody can be on board with it. When you break that down into a 90-degree chart, you're going to take that 2 degrees and divide it by 4 because there's 4 90s that go into the 360, right? Pretty straightforward math. So when you do that, you understand that that's going to be a 30-minute orb. You're going to be really tight on it. And that's going to be an expression with 2 charts coming together by a transit or more by a progression. That would be, you'd want a tight orb on a progression and a transit. I would go a little looser when I'm doing, I would go a 1-degree orb on a 90-degree chart when I'm doing synastry, or when I'm doing a return, or possibly even an eclipse that hits a personal point. I do 1 degree on eclipses, so I would do that for the Trans-Neptunians within an eclipse. All right, and this right here is another way of viewing the chart. So we take a 360 chart, and here's everything laid out, right? Right up top here. But then you do a 180 chart, and it folds everything in half. And you can see that the sun is at 120, and here's the sun at 120 again still. But Saturn at 318 maybe 318 degrees, that's going to actually work out to be about 138, right? Because you've divided it in half, you've folded it in half. Here's a 90-degree sort, and here's your Saturn rolled down into the 46th degree. And you can see that it's conjunct admitos. Sorry about that. Oh. Okay, there it is. And so the 90-degree sort is everything squared. And this whole thing is working on the 8th harmonic. All the squares, all the semi-squares, sesquisquares, and the oppositions. Everything is going to work out to be a square. So very active, paying attention to the activity in a chart. Not that other aspects aren't valid. It's just that obviously, you know, squares are huge. So this right here shows you how to get into this modulus sort within Solar Fire. And Solar Fire is what I use. So Madeline Hills-Deneen did some wonderful work on, she did a great article. Oh, I can't really do it. Okay. So she did a wonderful article on the Uranians, and I don't want to recreate the wheel here. In Uranian astrology, there are other charts that are used to read specific dynamics for a person or a situation. One of them is the Earth horoscope. The other is the ascendant horoscope, the sun horoscope, the moon horoscope, and the node horoscope. And they have to do with the Earth being how the person operates in the world. The ascendant is the person's connection to their environment, how they operate in a specific locale. And then the sun horoscope is relation to the physical body as well as the father. The moon horoscope, the emotional life as well as the mother. And the nodal horoscope being intimate or karmic connections, which everybody wants to know about, right? So I don't have a way of creating these charts. Solar Fire doesn't either. Maybe Sirius does, not sure, but you can create the nodal horoscope by putting the north node on the first. It's the specific house system afforded to you by Solar Fire. And then also the equal house system will work for the ascendant horoscope. So use those two. I'd like to move on here. And this is basically just a pretty picture. I really liked it. But we're going to move into midpoints, and that's one of the basic tenets of Uranian astrology, is to utilize those midpoints, turning the planets combined in midpoints into a picture or a sentence, a word picture, to give you a feel and understanding for what are the dynamics in the chart. So the book, like I just showed you a moment ago, by Vita and Lefelt, I should say. And this book, available on Amazon. It's not in print. You're going to get it used. If you get a copy, hold on to it, cherish it. It's not cheap, but it's full of beautiful information, amazing information. I've got the 5th edition. It's pretty old. You want to get a newer edition if you have that capability. Check into that. Also, a combination of stellar influences by Reinhold Eberton really did well with word pictures also for midpoints, midpoint astrology. And I've got it over there. I'm sorry I didn't show you a picture. But they're invaluable. So now we're going to move into the next part of the presentation, and that's going to be with comparing some charts, putting those together. So give me a moment and I'll get that going for you. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to start into the reading on a couple of charts, put some things together, and I am going to ask Wei to take a look at this chart and see how she would read this through EA astrology and the understanding of evolutionary astrology and how that works. Go ahead, Wei.
Okay. So first of all, EA is based on observation and correlation. So from my understanding, Dawn already told me her son has an opportunity for promotion. So my reading would be focused on the career-wise. We can see the Pluto in his chart is in the 6th house, Scorpio, and very closely conjuncted to the descendant. So for me, I see his soul has such strong desire to be service for other people. Also, the very tight conjunction to the descendant in Scorpio, I would imagine at the workplace, he naturally attract resources or like have the opportunity to work with very powerful people in his work. So the South Node is in the 2nd house, Cancer. From EA point of view, I'll read that is he carried this inner resources, some talent that's correlated to the work skill he has already worked on from the previously past life, and his soul has such desire to perfect those skills. So it's like to actualize his inner resources at the most. Also, we can see the North Node is in the 8th house, Capricorn, and the Pluto's polarity point is in the 12th house. Combine those signature, I would think he will grow in the cycles of crisis. Sometimes those crises may manifest like being powerless in the outside world, seems some outside force create this crisis. But at that time, he would be forced to face inside, sort of purify either his motivation to be service to others, or trying to doing a lot of self-analysis. Through the self-analysis, that's how he can see the root of the blockage, the problem. That's how he will consistently to grow and to improve himself. Also, the Saturn forming a very close conjunction to the MC in Aquarius. That's like he not only his desire to his talent to be a leader, also he has this desire to be authority in the work that he's passionate with, that reflect who he is. He will be a kind of leader to inspire others, help others to also find a social role or a career that reflect their inner individuality. So that's what I see from this chart.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. Absolutely. So when we add the Uranian points in, of course, that was an amazing reading, and it's spot on. It's exactly who he is as, a person. He's still young, 26 years old. So there's a lot more to go forward with, but everything you've said is spot on. So when we add the Trans-Neptunians and the additional flavor that brings, we can see a lot more to it. When we have, first and foremost, by using the meridian chart, putting that equatorial ascendant as the first house. When we move into that, we see that Pluto is in the 7th house, but it's also conjoined to Cupido. So it's really about, he develops through his family, and he does consider that others are the broader family. He very inclusive individual, very much creating family wherever he goes, creating associations that are very close and very well held, and people respond to that very warmly. He's a joyful, encouraging leader, and that can be seen by that Mars on the ascendant giving drive for that leadership, that Saturn on the midheaven, as Wei did say. But then we tie in the fact that we've got the Mercury opposing Saturn, Mercury from the 4th, opposing Saturn in the 10th, being squared by Admetos in the 1st. This is Admetos right here. Hopefully everybody can see my mouse pointer. This is Admetos at 16 Taurus in the 1st house. And Admetos is kind of cyclical. It speaks to Saturn. It recapitulates some of Saturn's understandings, but it's also blockage, a stopping point, and can, well, in this configuration, being at the midpoint of Saturn and Mercury, it can make him, it had him in early years having trouble with reading. He was very active. That Mars on the ascendant will definitely drive that, and very much wanting to keep moving, and slowing down to stop to learn to read was really irritating for him. Who wants to sit there? His worst punishment was to be sat on the couch. Timeouts for him were garbage. His brother loved a timeout because that was cool for him, not this guy. So, he definitely had that, but that went a long way to creating somebody who was really into persevering and really dedicated to expressing the drive to overcome any limitations. That's who he is. That's what he did. That's who he is. He has done this countless times in any limitations. Just to another point, when he was young, he thought he was going to be small. He worried because he has a brother who's 6'4" and another who's 6'3". Well, he's about 5'11", 6 feet. But when he was young, they were already older than him, and he was worried he wasn't going to get big and strong like them. He certainly did. He certainly did, because he's a superpower. But then third, we have Uranus at 15 Cap. Now, notice these are all, you know, uh, 17, 16, 16, 15, 17. Notice at 15 Libra, 15 Cap, 17 Cap, and 15 Libra on these. Notice that they're all in the same degrees. This in and of itself is a marker for all astrologers that you could see there's a lot of power and a lot of working together or against, but a lot of activity all in the same area of the chart, the second decan. So those are important markers as well in a chart. But this is Uranus with Neptune opposed by Vulcanus, which is superpower. Think of a volcano. And Apollon at 15 Libra. So to show you those, here's Apollon in the 6th house at 15 Libra. Here's Vulcanus at 16 Cancer in the 3rd house, daily activities, communication, early learning, that kind of thing. And then tying in the 15 Cap and the 17 Cap with Uranus Neptune. So when you read that, you're going to see somebody who has a definite power in leadership, in I've got the power to get the job done, to get things done, to make things happen. This Apollon being a specialist, being an expert in his field, which put that in the 6th house. It's pretty obvious, right? But he goes about this with kind of a sensitivity toward working with others and an inspiration to doing so as well. So totally gifted in this. He's got a very logical, deliberate, philosophical mind. He's also got that the link to success. Vulcanus, Apollon are going to create and make it clear that this is a successful configuration. He'll grow and he'll go further with that. So this is the chart on the 90-degree, the movable dial that I was talking about, and it is super cool, right? You can see immediately that he is hugely a fixed dynamic going on here. He has that fixed dynamic, which really speaks to the determination and the power that this person has. So we're looking at we're looking at how these things can figure together, and we can see immediately Admetos and Saturn are in the same place. Even though on the chart that we just looked at previously, we couldn't see that. We saw squares, right? And that's, as I was saying, that we've got the 8th harmonic shown here. We've got squares and oppositions and such being shown as conjunctions. So immediately you see that, and you see right away that that's opposite the node and the Aries point, the vernal point, the Aries point, all 0 cardinal points right here at the 0 point of the 90-degree sort chart. So you can keep that in mind. You see a lot more things just come right together when you're sorting it out this way. So right now, when we look at this chart, we can see the node conjunct the Aries point means that he will have connections. He will create connections out in the world. He will have an impact on the world through connecting to it. Again, another superpower marker. And then Admetos to Saturn, it brings power in and of itself. And it says, in a negative reading, you could say blockage, you could say stoppage, you could say stopped by the world. That would be a negative reading, and there's too much positivity to back this chart up to indicate that you're going to say that this is actually a very powerful person in the world through uniting with others. He actually has to do, shows that as his talent, working in the bases of things, working at the foundation of things. So Saturn Admetos could read as restriction, patience, and perseverance. Jupiter Apollon, this is Apollon. And we have, bear with me, Jupiter over here in the mutable area of the chart. And they line right up with this as the midpoint. So you can see that, and with this at the midpoint, you could see that would be expansive and supreme confidence. Now, that expansive, supreme confidence comes about by early years of Saturn Admetos restriction, having to exercise much patience and having to persevere. That brings that about. So maybe early years being kind of tough or not so bad in the end, right? But it depends on who's talking about it and who's experiencing it and how bad, right? So also of note are going to be the midheaven experienced with Kronos. Kronos is, bear with me while I move some things around to see it. Where's Kronos? Right here, yeah, of course, right opposite it. Oh. So the midheaven, pointing at the midheaven, brings Kronos into the picture, but also brings you to the Mars Volcanus configuration. Putting that together, it also, the midheaven Kronos equals Uranus and Apollon as well. And see, these are with less than a half of a degree apart, Uranus and Apollon. So in the cardinal configuration, right, taking the cardinal configuration and putting that in a picture with a fixed configuration, you can see activity, what you would term as strength of purpose in action, right? You can see that he could be a manager of a technical establishment, an authority in his scientific, commercial, or trade focus, his drive toward that. And that's totally what he is and what he does. And he is pretty masterful at it. Early years yet, but he does that, and that's why we're looking at promotions already. And we've had already a series of promotions in his focus. So then also we have the equatorial ascendant. Let's see, right here with Venus in the same picture there. And that, if I was to move the dial to there, which I can't show you to do here, but that's in equivalent pictures with Zeus. So that's desired, the book says, I didn't say it, the book said it, desired paternity, pleasant company, desired by all, or the favored one. And that is the truth. I can tell you that he is very pleasant company. His company is desired by all, and he is very much favored. Any group he is in. Any group he is in finds him favorable. So also Venus, Neptune, that creates a picture right here, Venus to Neptune, and that equates to Poseidon. So Poseidon is right at the center. Here's Poseidon. Venus to Neptune with Poseidon at the middle is he's a super sensitive. He can pick up on the theme of something that's going on with people, and he understands it. You know, he, like a cat, will land on his feet. He has that sensitivity to him. This would also be shown as a dowser, somebody who can find water easily. And that's what the book says. I'm not saying that, but basically that's how he is. I haven't tested his dowsing capabilities, but I know he's sensitive to a situation when he steps into it. And Mars Volcanus equaling the midheaven. I think we just covered that. Development of a great power qualified for powerful deeds. It's true. So each midpoint picture listed, there are other possibilities, but these are specific to how he experiences and expresses. And then this down here is the 90-degree sort specific to his situation. And you can see again this huge fixed focus here with hardly anything over here into the mutable focus and more in the cardinal focus. So pretty cool. And here we have his girlfriend's chart. They've been together for a while, and this speaks to how she works, and I'll work on the synastry in a moment, but wanted to lay the basis of how he expresses. So for her in particular, she has her midheaven joined to Venus and Neptune conjunct, and her sun and her moon conjunction. And those speak to having a husband and wife in harmony, both body, soul, body, soul, and mind, all three, not both, putting those together. So we know that she would have a happy marriage by this configuration. And, you know, they'll probably get married. They've been together for quite a while. And with the AP, the Aries point, again, the vernal point, the Aries point, 0 cardinal, anything, 0 Cap, 0 Aries, 0 Cancer, and 0 Libra, all 0 cardinal. And when we tie all that together, we can see here's the Aries point right here. We see as midpoints for that are Aries point and the ascendant. The midpoint is the midheaven. You can just see it just by looking at it on this movable dial here. So pointing right to that, and using solar fire for this shows the list of the midpoints applicable to the midheaven. So that's how the dial will work for you. So the location will influence her professional position, and that's true. I mean, they had been separate for a short while, and now they're together again. And you know, where she moved to with him set her on a different career path. So I think that will happen wherever his job takes them. Her job will change to match up with that, to match up with the location that she's in. In other words, wherever she finds herself, she'll find herself professionally engaged. And that will drive that. So also, again, Chronos Vulcanus. We've got Vulcanus here and Apollon and Chronos over here. We see them in this picture impacting the midheaven, and that is to wield great power or to be dictatorial. And with her, I think that if we tie all these together, is going to read the fact of the matter. I don't think she's a dictator sort of person, but understanding that in her, you know, if we start tying this together, what I'll do is I'll read the node ad mitos first. It's keeping a small social circle, and that's her focus. And then her focus is also wielding great power or being conjoined in marriage with somebody who wields great power and keeping a small social circle with him. And knowing that her professional position will be driven by that as well, by her location through her marriage. And that she'll be very happy with that. That's how I would read all of these together impacting the midheaven. And through this will be leading to her soul growth, the growth of her soul, the path of her soul in this lifetime. And additionally, her midpoint impacting, we've got the Apollon Vulcanus, and this is the Apollon Vulcanus right here with the midheaven impacting the ascendant. You can see that flies right in between those two. So that would be gaining great personal success through others or attached to successful people. That speaks back to a happy and successful husband. I do read traditionally in this case because I know that there are more traditional couple there. While they are young, it doesn't mean that they're, I don't know, liberal in their ideas, I guess. Also, so Zeus combining with Venus and Neptune. We've got Venus, Neptune right here, and we've got Zeus right there, and that speaks to the ascendant. Again, with this picture, you can see it's right in the middle. And so that would be motivated to achieve her dreams, which she is. So what she'll be doing is she'll be in whatever location she finds herself, she'll be motivated to get a job, support the husband, support the family, and that will work out really well that way because she'll have personal success, her husband will have success, and they'll come together. These pictures I'll show for her. Very lovely. And then Cupido at node Pluto. Cupido is right here. It's right in between the node, the north node, and Pluto. You can see just very simply, it is redeveloping old connections or previous connections. A redevelopment or a reunion of a connection is how the book reads that. Yes, that happened. They were separate for a while. They're back together again, and this is just her chart that we're looking at right now. So it's pretty straightforward. History is showing right there in the chart. And Cupido also equals Uranus and Kronos. So if we find Uranus and Kronos, let's see, where's our Kronos here? Right there. Uranus to Kronos, we could see that Cupido is at the center of that as well. So that is wielding financial power within trusts or corporations. And I think that that's to come for her yet. So right now she's laying the foundations on that. And then Mars equates to a midpoint of the Aries point and Kronos. And Mars is over here, directly opposite that. You could see that there. Great deeds of leading persons. Mars tends to indicate the man in your life. So this could be her, but it also could be that she has drive to achieve this herself. It could be him. It could mean him, but I think she has enough drive in her own self that she will be doing some good things for us as well. And then ascendant Hades, assisting others after or in accidents or not planned for happenings. So that would define an accident there. And let's just, run a scenario that she heads into the financial industry. She could be helping people with their wills. That would be having to do with Hades. And she would be possibly helping people with financial planning after things, go wrong, perhaps. That kind of thing. And then Node Poseidon, connections gained through personal intellect. So all of these things can come together, connecting to have a reading that she would have a sufficient drive in her career. Wherever she finds herself, she'll be able to use that location, influencing her professional position. And she'll be, not any shrinking violet, making things happen. And she'll be able to assist others. In fact, the only way she'll be able to achieve any measure of success will be through having an other-oriented drive in her profession. So that's something that I see right in here as well. Node Poseidon. So beautiful. It looks great. Now, when we put them together on a standard chart, immediately we can see the marriage marker connections. We see that his nodal axis is ruled by Mars and Pluto for his Scorpio, and Venus for his ascendant. And right now he has Mars conjunct his ascendant. And another marriage marker is Cupido on his descendant and Pluto on his descendant. So we know he's ripe for marriage. We know that he's, marriage-minded, that kind of guy. Additionally, we see her Pluto on his descendant, her Cupido on his descendant, her node on his descendant. We know this would make a good couple. This is definitely marriage marker, couple markers. Add to the fact that her ascendant is Aries and her descendant is Libra. And now we see that his Mars on his ascendant speaks to that ruling her ascendant. And so that's a marriage marker for her. And that's a marriage marker for her as well. So works very nicely there. We also see that their Moon and Mars conjunction That is also another marriage marker, and the Sun-Venus conjunction, another beautiful marriage marker. Something that may not be readily visible, but you get extra marks if you notice it. It's super cool. Right here, her sun and moon, balsamic moon, yes, but the midpoint is 18, Gemini, and that's actually his midpoint of his sun and moon. So it's kind of a big deal. It's something that you will definitely pick up when you're looking in the other chart in the movable dial, but yeah, definitely a marriage marker. So let's move on there. Interestingly, though, I wanted to touch on that. I mentioned it down here. This is her third house. This Sun Moon conjunction is her third house in Gemini, no less, right? Because obviously Aries ascendant. And then for him, it's his second house cusp. You know, there's his second cusp at 1826 Gemini. So right there, we can see that probably the worst thing he could do is ignore her when she's talking. And probably for him, he values, he values that, but, possibly because it's in Gemini, it could be a lot for him. The sheer volume could be overwhelming because it is his second house and because it's in Gemini for her. So something that they should think about possibly. But here in the movable dial, we have, look at how beautiful that is. You can see it right off that they're equating at midpoints. And just to touch on this right here is something that will help everybody in understanding just basic astrology, never mind Uranian astrology, but zero cardinal is always equating by a 45-degree angle to 15 fixed. And you can take that right around the chart. 15 cardinal equates to 0 mutable, 0 fixed, 15 mutable, 15 fixed, 0 cardinal, and around, all the way around. So when you're looking at a chart, if you could do math right away, this will definitely help you to read what's in aspect, in active, dynamic aspect with another point, be it by synastry or transits, progressions, anything, even just natally. So we touched on this about the sun and the moon and midpoint. But like I said, even without all the powerful markers that we had, marriage markers that we had previously, that sun moon midpoint being concurrent, that would be a huge marker for any couple coming together. Now, important, using the Uranians for their synastric astrology, just wanted to go into her planets or her Uranians working on his midpoints, just to give the background on that. So we have Admetos on his moon Mars and his Venus Cupido, and that reads as together they are creating a very close-knit family unit, and that would be her specialized focus because that is her Admetos. But it's kind of like a Mrs. Cleaver function. It has the capability, I should say, of manifesting as kind of a Mrs. Cleaver, June Cleaver kind of attitude. And that, alternatively, that could read as lonely housewife. I don't think that's going to happen. She's a very outgoing girl. She's not shy. That Sun, Moon, Gemini in the third speaks to that. And then also we have her moon and her sun, obviously, because they're right there together, impacting his sun moon, his Cupido Apollon, and his Pluto Vulcanus, which is huge, right? Only together will they bring about a powerful development in each by creating a highly successful family. So they are meant to be together, to come together, and to stay together to develop their soul purpose, right? To develop their purpose in this lifetime, to express it the right way. In other words, they know they've got to be together. They know they've got to work it out. Whatever it is, it's got to be worked out, or that stops their growth. Nobody wants that. So also her Chronos at 23 Gemini, almost 24 Gemini there, speaks to his Sun Saturn Admetos and his Moon Venus and his Mercury Poseidon, which could read as, or does read as, his highest ideal of a mother for his children is epitomized by her and hers in return. She needs him. She sees him as the ideal to father her children. Only he will do. So it's a beautiful little configuration for a couple that are thinking about marriage and children and a family. Vulcanus, 16, almost 17 Cancer, equates to his moon Zeus and Venus Kronos. So through her, he'll have powerfully healthy offspring with privilege and preferential favor, and she obviously as well, because it's her offspring. Moon Zeus, she that signifies in a man's chart. Signifies a woman outside of him, right? A woman that has powerfully healthy offspring. He provides the power. And she provides the power, and he provides the healthy offspring, and together that's what they create. Her Venus in Cancer there at 22, almost 23, is equating to his sun Vulcanus and sun Uranus Apollon, and the Aries point with Saturn Admetos and Vulcanus Poseidon. So we see her Venus sparks it all in his chart, right? Right, it's hitting on countless markers, and these are very powerful markers. So she epitomizes for him. We could see the sun working with, her Venus working with his sun. We saw that, and that'd be a nice little reading. But this shows the extra power that she's it, and it's ongoing faith and a powerful desire and love and a long, happy life. But it's more deep in that, like I said, she's hitting on all his cylinders. And then we have her Mars on his Aries point and Kronos midpoint. So that's means that she joins with a powerful leading person. That's cool. That's helpful. Zeus on Sun Mars, Venus Saturn Admetos, Jupiter Apollon, and Hades Vulcanus. Now Zeus is all about explosion. Zeus is Super Mars, and it's the spark. It's what sets things off. It's dynamite. So she's hitting all of his main points, and this reads, if you look at all of this, it sparks as an energetic man sparked to success through repeating patient, powerful efforts, assisting others in base foundations or start. So it's his midpoints. It's her Zeus. She sparks him. She sparks him to this, to manifesting the power in these midpoints. She's helpful in that way. And then Apollon is all about greatest success as a super Jupiter. So attach that to Moon Zeus and Neptune Uranus Apollon again. It's rapid expansion of a family or by healthy offspring. Definitely tying together that way. So we begin to see with all of this how huge it can be to add the Trans-Neptunians into the reading, because off of the standard reading, we get some of it, but do we get all of it like this? This is a big deal. We also have Poseidon at his sun and Saturn and Admetos, and Neptune and Uranus Apollon. So that's a spiritualized union. Poseidon is highest spirituality. It's a spiritualized union with a man of great physical concentration and absorption and inspired focus. And then the node, Cupido and Pluto, all of those from her attaching to his Hades midheaven can be marriage union with a man who helps others in strongest assistance to others, service to others, and developing their concerns. The book reads the utmost negativity, miserable in marriage, but we can see that wouldn't be the case based on everything else here. Miserable in marriage doesn't apply. And Uranus at Capricorn, at 25 Capricorn, conjunct his Aries point node Cupido and his ascendant Zeus and his moon Vulcanus. That is a sudden and powerful public events impacting a couple. Could that be earthquake, fire, explosions? Who knows? That's one way of reading it. I just wanted to include that because that's one way of reading it. It could also be read as, they find much excitement together. their marriage, their union, AP node Cupido, ascendant Zeus, powerful, emotional. They find much excitement and much growth being together. And we can see that. So now I wanted to introduce this portion where Wei will be speaking to her solar return. So in the first part here, we had, how to use the Trans-Neptunians in Synastry, but here we'll be stepping into showing how to use it for yourself in your solar returns or your progressions, and how to compare them and how to read them. Okay. All right. We'll get to that in just a moment. Wei will take here. Okay. So as promised, we have Wei's solar return chart and her natal chart right here. Inside is the natal. Outside is the solar return for October of 2018. And the first thing you notice right off is it's not just a solar return, it's a Mercury return with the angles matching the natal angles. This is huge. This is huge. So in any solar return, you're going to see you're going to see what can I say? Saturn conjunct Neptune. You're going to see that. You're going to see planets conjunct your natal planets. Not a big deal, right? And a solar return, it happens. That's what you look for. That's why you're looking. But in this, you'll note that in a solar return, when the angles are matching, this is a pivotal year for you. This is going to be a year of a personal impact, much more than other years that don't have these angles matching. You'll find that you'll kind of be on track for something that's going to be pivotal in your life, altering to your life, a big change in your life. So add to the fact that this is a Mercury return as well. Now, Mercury being so closely conjunct Saturn, putting then the return being so closely conjunct Jupiter, kind of just automatically speaks to a graduation out of a hesitant voice into a broad, expansive opportunity for that same voice. It's beautiful. The solar return provides Wei a temporary skipped step as well, impacting the solar return Venus. So here's the nodal axis for the return, and note, here's Wei's axis right here. Notice she's an eclipse baby, a lunar eclipse baby, conjunct the North Node. And so what we have is, we have this temporary skip step, this annual, for the year, skip step being created to her Venus, and it's conjunct Apollon and the natal sun as well. So obviously, right? And it brings in the solar return Uranus. Right here, the solar return Uranus, where are we? Right here. See that? Squaring to the nodal axis. So when you read that, you're going to see that the sun and Uranus are ruling the nodal axis of the return, right? The sun resolving to the North Node, Uranus resolving to its own South Node. This added to all the angles matching, and this being a Mercury return and a solar return, it just ups the ante so much more. Obviously, this is the time for Wei to, get at it and start shining all over the place, right? Leo, Aquarius, and bringing that forward, recognizing and realizing, manifesting out for the public her self-value, sharing that specific message, lighting up that throat chakra. That's what we're doing here. So she's totally on board, got that going on, and things are really starting to happen. We've got the solar return nodal axis also broadly square to the natal nodal axis. You can see that here at 9 Taurus being square to 0 Leo. So it indicates that this is a year of action as well in that endeavor, in creating unions with others, in answering those skipped steps that we have both in the natal and in the solar return. The natal skip step that I was just, alluding to is Jupiter in the first. Well, you know what? Here's the opportunity to bring that forward and recognize the opportunities that you have, for yourself to shine and move forward. So this is just a clear indicator that the opportunity is ripe, you're well prepared, and have reached the perfect timing to allow these opportunities to flourish. I don't think it could read better. So I think that here at this point, Wei's going to take it away and speak to a couple of things here. Maybe we wanted to look at the previous, take a look at this one and maybe speak to this. Okay, Wei?
Yeah, thank you, Don. I'm just going to add a little what's going on during the solar return time. So like Don said, obviously the Jupiter-Mercury conjunction joined by the natal Mercury-Saturn is the focus for me from 2018 to 2019. And add a little background information. Also in 2018, around August, in progression chart, the progress, the Venus has already formed a conjunction to my natal Mercury. So notice that Venus is the ruler of my North Node. It's again like my soul, the next step for my soul growth, how to develop this future lessons or the it's through the Mercury, it's through my throat chakra. And and in the 2019 June, the Venus, progressed Venus would, moving forward, make the exact conjunction to Saturn. Again, that's like double signature reinforces this theme from 2018 to 2019. Just during this time, I already started to do a little online teaching. I feel in the past few years when I was doing my astrology work, I was doing it in a very safe way. Like I only work with people that I feel resonated to. I feel comfortable, like on the energy level, I feel very comfortable to work with them. So I kind of like restrict myself a little bit to balance like how I feel. Because I have the moon in Taurus 4th house, so in a way I have to move forward or to grow like in a way I feel comfortable with, in a kind of pace I'm feeling safe with. Mm-hmm. And just recently, right during the solar return, when the Jupiter conjuncted the Mercury and the Saturn, I started to feel like my throat chakra is opening up. The fear of speaking my truth or just talking about what I'm passionate, like astrology, like a spiritual idea, has been easier for me. I feel more confident to share those information, to express myself a little more. So I feel because Saturn is correlates to timing, right? So I feel this chart is like indicate, okay, this year, this is the time to expand my voice. And I feel the strong desire to teach about natural law. You can see Jupiter is my skip step in my chart, in my natal chart, and I have strong 9th house planets. Then the solar return Jupiter conjunct Mercury, Saturn. So I do feel natural law is the essence of either my astrology study or how I counseling people with my astrology. That's the bottom line, and I feel such desire just to introduce the natural law to other people when, especially those people are in trauma. Those trauma may rooted by how they judged, wounded by the projected, judgment from the man-made law. Yeah, so I feel like this year going forward, that's kind of like my vocation to help people understanding and discover their own connection to the natural right and wrong. In this way, they can decondition from any man-made judgment and really to find their inner voices, their inner authority.
Yeah. Wonderful. I mean, this, it says so much right here. Just obvious opportunity in the solar return. Let's see if we find any more with the Trans-Neptunians. If things become more clear when we dig in a little bit, we can see a couple of things like, okay, Kronos conjunct Vulcanus. That's going to indicate Kronos is the highest authority, an expert in their field, so to speak, the best at whatever is happening. And Vulcanus is about digging deep. It's superpower. It's so it definitely adds power to your expertise just on that reading alone. But let's see if we can go forward looking at other things. I'll advance the page. Okay, so in this here, this is just, showing the natal chart again with the natal chart with the Uranians in. No Uranians. Uranians are Trans-Neptunians is what I mean to say. So you can see how the chart is different. And I just included that for everybody's understanding. And then here, this was the first chart again. And then this is the solar return separated from the natal. So we could see that. And look at that beautiful grand trine there, grand trine here. I mean, it's very lovely, really. It really speaks to all your talents being afforded every opportunity at this point. So beautiful. Stepping into the movable dial, though, this is where we start to see things come alive. And so here's that Apollon, Vulcanus, and Kronos right here, which is super cool. You see the arrow pointing at Apollon. I chose to point the arrow at Apollon on this one specifically because it shows all the midpoints that are, coming on that. And Apollon is all about scientific expertise, digging into investigating, becoming an expert at expansion of knowledge in every way. And Apollon is, well, it rules astrology, scientific understanding, right? And so let's just look at this configuration here. This is solar return Jupiter, which is right here. And you can see right off that is the solar return Jupiter and Mercury midpoint with Kronos opposing it, conjunct Apollon. I mean, that's the little picture that we're getting there. That Mercury Jupiter that we were speaking about just a moment ago, conjunct to the Mercury Saturn, not necessarily opposed, square, somehow in the eighth harmonic with Apollon and Kronos. Beautiful picture right there. Beautiful picture. But Apollon contains the energy of Jupiter and Gemini in and of itself and emphasizes expanding knowledge, consciousness, ability to communicate, the type of intuitive messages that you get. Your understanding expands exponentially with this type of configuration here. So Vulcanus adds great energy to this, superpower to this, and to sets these types of actions in motion, because this is all about the dynamics and the actions. It's a 90-degree sword. It's all about squares, the eighth harmonic. And so in the solar return chart, Vulcanus at 1 Leo conjunct the north node at 0 Leo in the 6th house. And that's the degree of the lunar eclipse on the 21st of January. So right around the lunar eclipse, I think I'm reading your part, and I'm sorry, sweetie.
It's okay. Yeah, I can continue. Yeah, I just noticed the timing is very interesting because in the solar return chart, volcanoes conjunct North Node in Leo, 0 degree. Then the eclipse happened January is also at the same degree. And just around January 21st, a friend invited me to sort of working with her to teach online courses. And she is doing some kind of spiritual teaching, but she specifically interested in like how I use the natural law in the astrology work. So that's very interesting for me, the timing wise. Then also Dawn pointed out earlier in the solar return chart, Apollon conjunct Venus, that's the temporary skipped step in the solar return chart. And this friend, her moon is actually at 0 degree Scorpio. So that's conjunct the Apollon and Venus in the solar return. I feel this is like her inviting me, give me such courage to do those things because I don't really have the initiation, and I feel this opportunity is really helping me to kind of solve this temporary skip step. Also, when the Apollon Venus square the nodes, the resolution node is the North Node in Leo. So from the South Node in Aquarius to the Leo energy, I feel it's really fits my work because I have been like this friend and we were both hiding behind computers doing our work in a safe way. So I feel this year we kind of have the opportunity to have more human connection and doing our work in this way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. You're speaking my story as well, for sure.
So true.
Yeah. All right, let's see what the next swing offers us. And now, do you want to speak to this, or would you like me to? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I kind of just follow the guides and the information Dawn already provided and trying to look this chart in a new perspective. I feel when I have the North Node in the 3rd house Taurus, so every time if I can look at this information in different ways, different method, that always helped me to absorb more, to internalize those ideas. Mm-hmm. So the solar return moon is the midpoint of natal Zeus and Apollon. And Zeus correlates to channeled and directed creative energy. I kind of get a feeling Zeus has this very young energy of manifestation, of creation, and it's very positive motivation and ambition to develop one's leadership. And Apollon correlates to astrology studies. So that's just based on my own experiences. For me, it's astrology study. And through the astrology study to further expand my consciousness and also to kind of use my awareness to bring some sort of healing energy to others. When Zeus combined Apollon linked to the solar return moon, it's in the 6th house Cancer for me. Because I just learned moon in the Uranian astrology correlates to public. So that's like I'm practicing my astrology work more towards the public. Mm-hmm. And in this way, like I'm being tested or I learn new things during the experiences. And in this way, I can expand my consciousness. That's like how the further growth come to me. then I also can share my knowledge with others to bring emotional healing for them. Because I feel the moon has this nurturing factor that I think that's the way I know how to nurture others, is to share like my knowledge or what I learned from my own experiences, to sort of help them to understand. The moon is in the sixth house, maybe understand like the difficulty or the crisis they are in, and how to work out through those crisis timing. Yeah, and I also feel a strong desire to like be service for either women or like the inner feminine energy within men. So I do feel this healthy ambition and motivation to create in this year so much stronger than before.
Yeah. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what happens. You get the motivation when the time is right. I mean, hopefully we all get it that way.
Totally.
Yeah. So within that solar return, we see that Chronos is impacting the Jupiter, Uranus, Apollon, which is your science, expansion, commerce, trade, peace, glory, and honor. And for you, that is...
I read this because Jupiter is in my natal 11th house. No, Jupiter is in Aquarius first house, and Uranus is in 11th house Sagittarius. So they are like mutual reception. And I just feel this pointing strongly to the intuition. That's how I learn. That's how I deepen my knowledge. So I do feel this year I'm like more open. It's like there is a shifting in my astrology work. I'm not so much read the chart like literally, but more follow and trust my intuition to guide me, to provide information that I feel is important for the other person at that time.
It totally
that's how I get with this part.
Yeah, it totally is. It totally makes sense. And that speaks to the next one, which is that...
Yeah, totally.
Right? Pluto's development, Poseidon is that inspiration, that spiritual, intuitive capability, tapping into the water of it all, right?
Yeah, the Pluto Poseidon, I also feel there are more trust within that intuition. Yeah, like I can trust it always guide me to speak the truth, and that's how I feel about Pluto Poseidon.
Yeah, and calling it initiation of a new cycle for a long-term goal, you can see how that would like come right out of the book, right? It would be this little sentence of, a couple of energies coming together. But when you look at it and when you pull it apart for what's really happening in a person's life, in the life of the chart, which is just this flat little bit of information, suddenly it comes to life and you can hear, all the detail coming through, singing right out of these configurations.
Yeah, I just feel it's more organic way. There's a preparation, and that's the Saturn and Metals.
Yeah, the depth brings transformative power into the career. Also can mean cycles of blockage. While the SR solar return Mars in the first Aquarius, it's that desire for that growth, that constant growth, and that action. Get it moving. Yeah. So with the midheaven and the moon at Mitos, do you want to go over this? You want me to?
Yeah. So midheaven in the Uranian astrology correlates to the soul. So in the solar return chart, I'll just read that's the soul growth during this year period. So in previous cycle, the weight of negative emotion, especially the fear, the Mercury Saturn in 10th house Scorpio, so it's really heavy fear, right? Blocked me from the public interaction. I also restricted myself because of that fear. And of course, those time are necessary because at that time I'll have more time to do this inner contemplation. So I feel this is the year I'm recognizing my soul's purpose and to use this deep emotion in a more constructive way. I joke around like use my personal suffering to transform to wisdom if I can help other people in any way.
Yeah.
And to recognize each individual as a unique and has a unique and specific message. So I think that speaks to this Mercury Saturn also, because when you have Mercury Saturn in 10th house Scorpio, I meet a lot of other people have similar signature. We always think there is just a one standard. You have to meet that professional standard to have the right to share anything to the public or just to have anything to share with others. And I think the Jupiter kind of come here to ease that a little bit. Like, okay, as long as you have a message that's helpful, you have the right to share it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the duty, right? The responsibility.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is, natally having that Mercury Saturn and then having it this year be the Mercury Jupiter. It says that time where you were keeping your mouth closed and occupying your mind on the details, on the setting the foundations and everything, it's the perfect timing now. The cycle has reached its completion. Now it's time to be expansive with all of that and put it out there, be beneficent with all that, give it away.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I know this year is going to be amazing for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is something that I included in the last one, the introduction, but I just wanted to re-add it here because I feel that it's important. Everybody will be able to see it, and you can take a screenshot of it. The detail is excellent. And in fact, even this shows me probably that I'd gotten some of the advancement of the planet strong on one of the first sheets, but whatever, you could see the detail here. Somebody else can do that math. So Whitty's proposed sign rulership, you could see that's vastly different from what we normally take to be a ruler. Most people don't think of Neptune as ruling Scorpio, but it's very interesting that he does, or did, I should say. So this is all included in the last introduction, and here are all my credits. There's a lot of information out there. It's totally valuable, huge. I mean, this one, Uranian astrologer, she's wonderful. Midpoint astrologer, Cape Cod astrologer, tons of information, just dig right in there and take a look at all you can find. Lynn Coiner, Arlene Kramer, beautiful information out there. Oh, look at that. I must love the Cape Cod astrologer, huh? All right, so this has been wonderful. Wei, did you have anything to add?
No, thank you for inviting me to working this with you.
Thank you for joining me. It's been such a special experience. Really cool to read your stuff. So thank you all for joining us, and all the links will be there, and look forward to seeing you in future endeavors.